Let's take the 2021 GMC Yukon for a drive. The 2021 Yukon is pretty much all new, and the big news is a brand new chassis architecture. It's now an independent rear suspension. So the last Yukon was effectively a pickup truck with some seats in the back and a big roof over them. But this one is a lot more refined, and while it still has a lot of the towing and hauling chops of a Chevy Silverado, GMC Sierra, it's a lot better equipped for handling passenger duty. I know I sat in the rear seat of this, the furthest back third row seat of this earlier today, and was frankly amazed at just how much cargo space there was behind me and how much legroom there was in front of me. If you're buying a Yukon or a Tahoe with the intention of carrying around 3+ kids, you're going to be much better served with a 2021 than you would be with the previous generation truck. There's no denying the truck underpinnings of a full-size body-on-frame SUV like this. In fact, it gets to the point where you look at a Toyota Highlander or a Honda Pilot and you think, well, those aren't that much smaller. But then you drive a car like this, and suddenly you realize that you're looking down on the drivers of those Pilots and Highlanders. It's almost as if you're driving a coach bus. Obviously not that dramatic, but closer to that feeling than a sports car, that's for sure. There's now enough space, legroom, storage in the rear that it almost feels, when you're sitting back there, you can just take a walk around. This test car is a Denali trim, which is GMC's kind of top tier, most fancy, most glamorous trim package, trim level. And it does include the Denali Ultimate package, which is expensive. It's over $11,000, but it includes a lot of content, which you can hear more about in our full review, or you can read about in Chris Wardlaw's written review on CarGurus.com. Now, one item that is exclusive to the Denali is the 6.2-liter V8 engine that I'm enjoying now. All the other trims get a 5.3-liter V8 engine. And what's interesting is that 5.3-liter used to be the powertrain that you chose if you didn't have to worry too much about towing or hauling. But it's been so dramatically improved for 2021 that it actually has higher tow ratings than the 6.2-liter. Now, it doesn't have the same kind of power. I mean, we're living with 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque, which is just about enough to pull down a redwood. But it doesn't tow as much. It can't haul as much payload as either. And I realize in a 3-row SUV, you're less worried about payload, but you might very well be curious about the towing, particularly if you're planning to tow the family yacht or whatever you tow behind an $85,000 semi-luxury SUV. That 5.3-liter engine is better suited for the job now than the 6.2. I said in the full video review, 6.2-liter engine ends up being sort of a vanity project. It's there because it sounds good. It's there because it has the more power. It's the one that you want on paper. But in real life application, I'm not sure it's worth the added expense over the 5.3 liter. One item that you will appreciate, as we just drove over all of that classic New England broken pavement, is the Yukon's Magna-Ride suspension. The magnetorheological suspension does a terrific job of adapting on the fly to road conditions, really soaking up the bumps a lot better than you could get out of a typical truck suspension. It's pretty phenomenal to know that you can buy a vehicle like this, a vehicle built on a Sierra 1500, chassis, and it rides this smoothly over roads this bad. A vehicle this big also requires a fair bit of focus when driving, particularly around more settled areas like we're driving in now. Now, luckily, GMC has fitted the Denali trim with a wealth of safety features. In fact, many of these features are available even on the base SLE trim. Some of the ones that are optional even on the Denali, but that I've really appreciated, we have adaptive cruise here. I also have a head-up display, which you likely can't see on camera right now. It is a little challenging to see with polarized sunglasses, but it has a wide range of options for raising it or lowering it, brightening up, dimming it, and I was able to kind of brighten it up and position it as such so that when I first got in the car with my sunglasses on, I couldn't see it super well, but after a few tweaks, it became more than livable. It also features a little detail called it's a following distance indicator. And again, very difficult to show in a POV format like we're driving in today, but it essentially shows you, it brings up a vehicle on the head-up display if there's a vehicle driving in front of you, and then it gives you an estimate on how much time it would take to stop the Yukon if the car in front of you stopped. So how many seconds behind the car in front of you are. And it's great because, driving in traffic or, that urban area heavily populated 60-mile-an-hour traffic where there's 10,000 cars on the road and everybody's riding each other's bumper, it's easy to get a little closer than is actually safe. So driving this car, I look at that, I say, let's keep it 2.5, 3 seconds behind the car in front of me. And I believe this is where I want to turn. There we go. And it helps me keep my distance a little better. It's a nice, pretty road. the Yukon has always held kind of an interesting spot in General Motors' price hierarchy, to put it in an interesting way. You know, I joke in our full video review that the person who buys a GMC Yukon is the person who wants a luxury car but doesn't want to be seen driving a Cadillac Escalade, doesn't want something that's that flashy. You know, this is definitely has more of the workman-like attitude, whereas the Escalade is a pure style machine. You know, they certainly don't make an off-road variant of the Escalade, but they do make an AT4 trim of the new 21 Yukon. Now, prices on this, I mean, they start over $50,000, and a Yukon Denali, I believe it starts at $72,695 with four-wheel drive. That's a lot of money. And on top of that, you will probably want to add the Denali Ultimate package, which adds another $11,255. Also adds a lot of content. Adds that adaptive cruise control, which I really appreciate. It adds the rear seat entertainment system. I just missed that turn. Focused on talking to you guys. But suddenly you're looking at a Yukon Denali north of $85,000. For a lot of shoppers, that's a pretty penny. That's a steep price tag. But I do believe, particularly when you compare it with a Cadillac Escalade or, a Mercedes GLS class, a BMW X7, you get a lot of content. You don't get quite the level of luxury you get in those competitive cars, but you get a ton of practicality, a ton of usability, functionality, over 8,000 pounds of towing capacity with the tow package. You don't get close to that in a Mercedes or a BMW. So if you like the size and the feel of a Cadillac Escalade, but you're looking for something that's not quite as dramatic in terms of its opulence, the GMC Yukon, it has always been, it always will be a very compelling option. And it's easy to look at 85 grand and say that is way too expensive, but if you compare it with a lot of the competitors, it's pretty accurately priced. Plus, it has that great engine